114 years ago, the Wright brothers took the world's first manned flight, and because it was so revolutionary, they found it next to impossible to convince local journalists to cover the event. Right now, as you watch this, 500,000 people are sitting in commercial planes and flying around the globe. A new revolution is just getting started, and fortunes will be made. Blockchain technology is the game changer for the financial services industry. It will rewrite history, but 99% of the population has not even heard of it yet. For the first time since 2009, when the cryptocurrency Bitcoin was launched, making many new millionaires and multimillionaires. Now there's a way to become a pioneer investor and get positioned early using a traditional publicly traded company. It is the bridge between the blockchain world of cryptocurrencies and the stock market. And Portfolio Wealth Global's founder views it as the most significant opportunity in the past 5 years. Go to portfoliowealthglobal.com/must for a detailed exclusive report on this brand new company. Welcome to Cryptocurrencies, the Future of Digital Money show at portfoliowealthglobal.com. My name is Michelle Holliday. Today we have a bombshell interview with Andy Hoffman, whose financial market expertise spans 3 decades. Andy has worked as a top analyst in stocks and bonds trading, spanning commodities from oil equities to the precious metals market. Andy has been a Bitcoin enthusiast since 2015. He left Miles Franklin, a top bullion dealer in August of 2017, to launch his own subscription-based website, CryptoGoldCentral.com, which focuses upon the virtues of both Bitcoin and gold. Andy, we are so happy to welcome you to the show. How are you today?
Great. It's a pleasure to be here. I hope I can live up to the moniker of bombshell interview.
I want to start with understanding whether cryptocurrencies are part of a bigger trend, a worldwide revolt against the monopoly of governments and commercial banks in terms of the creation of credit and currency. From your perspective, could this be not only a financial innovation, but also a social declaration of uneasiness with the very institutions that are supposed to defend our rights?
Well, it's not a coincidence that the white paper, Satoshi's white paper, came out during the heart of the 2008 crisis, and the first block, the Gemini block, was mined in early 2009, right in the middle of the heart of the crisis. And in many ways, it was the catalyst that brought it around, but I think this was a long time coming, because the way I put it, the biggest man-made destructive force we've ever known has been fiat currency. And there's really been no way to fight back against it as a people. I mean, yes, there are things that the people can do to fight back. This Catalonian secession referendum is a perfect example of something that a determined human effort can do. But we've never had the technology to overcome. I mean, put it away, the manipulative technologies of the powers that be are pretty powerful. I mean, they can manipulate markets and maintain control, hold on to the media coverage. It's really impressive what they built up, but they've now come across their match, which is the cryptocurrency technology, which is enabling the people to fight back. I think it's the first time ever that the 99% have the ability to participate, because all they need is a computer.
Mm-hmm. It's really exciting, too.
Yeah, it's amazing. Look, I've been a precious metal person for 15 years. I just left the bullion industry after 6 years, but I've been commentating on precious metals going all the way back to when I first got into it in 2002. And until Bitcoin came along, there was really no other means for me to express that, both from a investment standpoint and just trying to help people. Investment standpoint, and also in my professional vocation, and also because I really want to help and make the world a better place. But there was really nothing I could do. Look, I've been fighting the cartel for 15 years, and while they will eventually lose, probably because they're just disbanded in the face of the government fights against Bitcoin, they have been very successful in controlling markets, and it's been very frustrating. Whereas what I see in Bitcoin now is something that can't be stopped. And a perfect example is what just happened last week or 2 weeks ago with the Chinese government. In fact, you had the 1-2 punch within 2 days. You had Jamie Dimon, the CEO, criminal CEO of one of the largest banks in the world, come out and viciously attack Bitcoin as a fraud. And then 2 days later, the government of China pretty much banned Bitcoin. And I have a feeling they'll be back in it at some point. But the point is, you're talking about the most powerful forces out there attacking, with all their might. And what it do? Nothing. The price went down for a couple of days, and now it's moving back up. It's above those levels, and it's getting close to an all-time high. The point is, you can't stop Bitcoin because it's decentralized, and it's what they call anti-fragile, meaning the more that you fight it, the stronger it gets.
Andy, let's discuss the adoption of gold as a means of money. How would this be possible if you had your way?
I think I'm having my way right now because look, the way that I've said this all along, because a lot of people mistake me. There's that word gold bug. I hate that word because it's really used more derogatory than anything. Kind of someone who's like has a cult-like belief in gold and they refuse to have an open mind to anything. But I've never been a gold bug. I've simply believed that gold was the only sound money that we've ever had. The problem is that it's never worked as money because the only way you can have it as money is if there's a gold standard, which is managed by governments. And so the record shows that every gold standard has been destroyed by governments, just like every fiat standard. Completely different reason. The fiat standard is because it's hyperinflated. The gold standard is because the government steals the gold or they renege on the gold. And we've just had in 1934 and in 1971 in this country, we've either reneged on gold standards or diluted or took the gold away from people. And that's been the case throughout history. So what I wrote it back in 2014. I wrote, "Is gold money? Who cares?" And my point was that I don't own gold because I believe there'll be a gold standard. I don't think that's possible because no one will ever trust governments anymore, much less that they even have gold. I mean, if the U.S. we're going to have a gold standard, the U.S. government would have to have the gold in Fort Knox, but there's no way they have it. They've clearly sold it or swapped it or leased it away. I said, no, you own it as a store of value because A, it's been suppressed, and B, because when the fiat system does destroy itself, like all the previous 1,000 fiat systems, that's going to be one of the places people go to. The problem is that, as I said, the manipulation keeps the game going for a long, long time. A lot of people I know have died in the process of waiting. But what you have in Bitcoin is something that governments can't stop, and they will keep trying, as I say, flailing at windmills like Don Quixote. And this attempt by the Chinese government to slow it down is a perfect example because it just made it stronger. So this is the way I'd like it anyway, because gold is not very. People say, oh, it's divisible, you can have 1/10 of an ounce, but it's not really divisible, it's not portable. It doesn't have a lot of the properties of gold that make it's monetary in that it stores value, but it's not transactional, and it's not really it's not accessible to most of the people, whereas Bitcoin is accessible to anyone with a computer and can be bought in Satoshis, which is 100 millionth of a Bitcoin.
One of the problems and frightening problems with gold is it can be confiscated.
Absolutely. I just wrote an article called Unconfiscatable. And for all intents and purposes, it is. Yes, I mean, if you're not careful with your Bitcoin, that's what people have to learn very quickly, is how to secure your Bitcoin. You have to make sure that you hold your private keys and you're careful of where you store them and who knows about them, all those kind of things. But if you do that, it's practically unconfiscatable. I mean, you could literally have Bitcoin with nothing but storing in your head the password. Or the private keys. Some people do that if they're that paranoid, but even if not, this offline hardware wallets, there's all kinds of ways of encrypting and hiding Bitcoin so that it is unconfiscatable, as opposed to, as you say, gold, which it's very confiscatable. And look, let's say if the government bans it, right? And you say, well, we'll have a black market, people go around, and that's true. But the fact is, a black market in gold is a very, very inefficient means of money, and it's really just something that works in theory but not in practice.
Andy, the economy is growing, the world population is growing, the need for international commerce is growing. In the future, could we see everyday companies like McDonald's or Walmart using their own currencies backed by their products? In other words, in a decentralized system, any organization can issue its own tokens, which are backed by tangible products and are tradable. Is this a possibility?
Well, yeah, but that doesn't make them money. That just, it's kind of like if you go to Macy's and they say, apply for the Macy's credit card. And say, we would like you to use the Macy's credit card because you get some perks on it. That's good. I mean, there's some perks to it. But people are only going to use it to go to Macy's, and they're only going to use it for the benefits. It's a perfect example. You go in the Macy's and it says, if you use it, you get a one-time 15% discount. So what happens? Everyone gets the one-time 15% discount and then stops using it. Because there's no monetary value. It's just like a coupon, that's all. And there's never going to be monetary value stored in Macy's or McDonald's. So it's really no different than a debit card or a gift certificate, as opposed to a store of value, which is money. Because while Bitcoin is stores value, it also can be used as transactional, but it can be used everywhere, not just at McDonald's.
Just a moment ago, you mentioned China. What are your thoughts about government-mandated cryptocurrencies?
It's a misnomer. I mean, it's like what's the word? It's like jumbo shrimp, oxymoron. I mean, the government. First of all, what if they did have that? It's no different than we have now. That's what's so funny when people say, "Well, the government will create their own cryptocurrency, and that will supersede Bitcoin." Well, they already have that now. We have a cashless society right now. The digital currency is the dollar, and they try to mandate that you use it, and they have all kinds of AML, KYC laws. And if you try to use Bitcoin or gold or any other thing, they don't like it. So they could say we're now having Fed coin, but all that would do is basically just say, okay, it's still the dollar, except this time it's on a blockchain, so we can see everything you do like Big Brother. So there's no monetary value. It's just forcing a unit of a medium of exchange on you, which is no different than the dollar, except in this case, they're also going to be able to watch everything you do. It's the equivalent of making a cashless society.
Do you think that programmed limitations such as the 21 million bitcoins is a smart concept? Wouldn't we want the amount of currency and credit to grow with a proportion of the economy?
Well, that's another misnomer. It's in fact that fits more in the propaganda mode that you can't have a gold standard because there's not enough gold. Well, of course there's enough gold. If the price rises to a level where the market value of gold is enough, then it can grow with any amount of the economy. And the same goes with Bitcoin. Right now, the reason that it's more volatile than let's say the dollar is because it's brand new and it's still growing into its role as a store of value and a medium of exchange. But in time, it will, and that goes for anything. If anything becomes valuable enough, if people trust in it enough, and it becomes valuable enough, then people will want it, and it will become more stable in value, and therefore can be used as a currency. But there's no need for any restrictions on how much gold is out there or how much Bitcoin is out there. Frankly, the thing that makes Bitcoin most valuable of all the things, aside from the security, because it can't be hacked or stolen by governments or commandeered, is the 21 million coin limit. And without it, I would never have any interest in it at all.
Because it could turn into a fiat situation.
Yeah, and in fact, that was my biggest fear when I first heard of Bitcoin back when. Of course, I didn't understand the technology, as today almost no one still does. But I've spent a lot of time studying it and listening to the smart people in the space, and it is in fact a cap that can never be changed. Yes, it can be changed. The only way it can be changed is by consensus. If the vast majority, the consensus of the global network, of the tens of thousands, soon to be millions of users, all agreed, kind of like with SegWit, that they wanted a higher cap limit, then it would get done. But since it's the number one use case of Bitcoin is a store of value, and the number one reason that makes it a store of value is that 21 million coin limit, there's not a chance that would ever be changed.
Let's discuss blockchain technology. Many companies from IBM to Microsoft and other giants are putting billions into research, and their objective is to capture part of the Internet of Things. Could you elaborate a little bit on the growing attention to this topic?
Right, and it's obviously the blockchain is I've said the two biggest technologies of our lifetime are the Internet. Well, I'd say the Internet and Bitcoin. And of course, the technology behind Bitcoin is blockchain, but the misnomer that goes around is that, blockchain equals Bitcoin. No, there's only one blockchain that has any real value in the world, and that is Bitcoin. There are others that are trying. I guess you can say to an extent that Litecoin, which I also like, has some value. Some will say that Ethereum and some of the other cryptocurrencies have value, but they're obviously much smaller than Bitcoin. And the fact is that Bitcoin is the only one that really has network effects, because it's actually used for anything material right now. But as for these companies, yes, there's absolutely benefits of scale that can be used in the blockchain. In fact, I remember when I was back in the oil business on Wall Street, back in, at the time of the dot-com bubble, we were developing, a platform to recommend that people look into all the benefits that can be made when the internet met the oil field sector. Like you can have cheaper auctions and all kinds of things that just make it cheaper. Most of those things don't dramatically change the business, but they do provide for some efficiencies. And in the case of blockchain, there are going to be some businesses which are dramatically improved by the technology because it just their nature will allow them to reduce a lot of costs, and some where it really won't matter much at all. But the net is that it's going to be a major benefit for industry. But when you have companies come out there and say, well, we're supporting this, we're going to create this great thing that's going to compete with Bitcoin. No, they won't compete with Bitcoin because on store value, there's only one Bitcoin. It has all the network effects. The odds of it being surpassed in that means are close to zero. But as for all the other applications of it, yes. I mean, Microsoft has needs for it. Oil companies have needs for it. Retailers have needs for it. And it is going to cause a vast improvement in economic output and productivity, just like the internet did.
Andy, could you please tell our viewers about your own amazing background and what inspired you to actually leave a major bullion dealer to create and launch CryptoGoldCentral.com?
My amazing background. Well, look, I'm from New York. That's where my edge comes from, and I was a CFA, and I worked on Wall Street for 16 years. And at the end of my Wall Street tenure, I left Wall Street in 2005 after all the scandals at Solomon kind of ripped the whole the whole sector apart and the aftermath of the dot-com bubble. But in 2002, while I was still there, I got interested in gold because I felt like the dollar was overvalued because of all the money printing. But it wasn't until 2008 where I really understood just how deleterious the fiat currency system was. And that was after 5 years of studying it, and then of course seeing the financial crisis. To me, that was the point where the as I call it, history's largest, most destructive fiat Ponzi permanently broke. And so after that, I really got more and more into it. I started working in the mining industry. And then in 2011, I was kind of done with the mining industry. I was more interested only in the actual physical metal because of manipulation. And so by the time we got to just a few years ago, I pretty much was one of the top commentators on the sector in the world. And this summer I had an epiphany. I've been in Bitcoin now for 2 years, and I've been writing about it as carefully as I can, given my role at a bullion dealer. I do believe that Bitcoin is the best thing that ever happened to gold, but most of the people in our sector don't want to see it that way. And so it kind of became a little conflict of interest because I would say good things about Bitcoin and most people in our sector didn't want to hear them. And then finally it kind of came to a head this summer when Bitcoin had its big breakout, and a lot of people didn't take to it well. So it just kind of culminated this summer, and I've been thinking for a long time that I need to start on my own, and this is the perfect example. So I started CryptoGoldCentral.com 3 weeks ago only, and I've already got like 200 blog posts. I have a lot of followers already, or a lot of subscribers. There's a free 7-day trial. I really am doing something I love and think that I'm really helping people, and it's just really gratifying.
You mentioned an interesting perspective. Are most people who are really into gold seeing the situation as gold versus cryptocurrencies?
Oh, absolutely. And this has probably been the biggest thing that drove me away from the precious metal sector, because I found that the people in the precious metal sector, generally speaking, don't want to have an open mind about things. Bitcoin is just staring them right in the face, and they just don't want to. It's not even like you have to make that conclusion that I made. But everyone, for the most part, comes out and says, gold is going to beat Bitcoin, Bitcoin is going to collapse. They don't do any research at all. I don't think really 99% of the people I come across know much about Bitcoin, but the people in the precious metal industry, generally speaking, not all of them, are either in denial or don't want to do the research. And if you do the research, you say, hey, this has a lot of the properties of gold. In fact, it has some of the things that gold doesn't have. And I think when the fiat system, we all agree the fiat system is doomed. When it goes down, I think that there's going to be, both are going to have a place in it, gold and Bitcoin. The thing is that I think Bitcoin is going to have a much larger role because this is the digital age. This is the Star Trek age. And fiat currency and gold to an extent is the Flintstones age. So while gold is extremely rare and extremely scarce and has been money for the past, or monetary for the past 5,000 years, I think the future of money, meaning the day-to-day utilitarian money, is going to be Bitcoin. So gold is going to be a nice passive store of value in my view, and Bitcoin is going to be the dynamic driver of the future monetary system.
On the topic of Bitcoin, is it a currency or an asset? And if it is a currency, since it is not stable yet, it makes it almost impossible for mass adoption. If it is an asset of sorts, what is the fair market value of it?
Well, that's the beauty of it, is that it is both. Now, of course, it's very new. It's only been around 9 years. That's what's funny when some people say, "Well, I mean, look, it's volatile. It can't possibly be a currency." Well, yeah, it's only been around 9 years, but what it's done in 9 years is absolutely incredible. Just getting to, for instance, a market cap of $75 billion over 9 years is an incredible feat in and of it. It would be an incredible feat for any company. I don't think Apple or any of those guys could boast that they did that. And the reason they did it is because there is widespread adoption. But right now, it's just a small amount of people. Remember, you've got to overcome the inertia of centuries of fiat currency, especially now in our Keynesian system where the markets are completely rigged. All the manipulation, the same manipulation and propaganda that says gold is a barbarous relic, which it's not, is telling you that Bitcoin is a bubble, it's a Ponzi scheme, it's going to crash. But it's really because most people don't understand it yet. But around the world, people are using it like crazy. They're really using it in places where currencies are in worse shape than they are in the West, and inevitably it'll be in the West too. But the amount of adoption, the growth in Bitcoin's price absolutely mirrors the growth in its adoption. Except right now, because it's early in its life, the primary use case is a storage of value, and that's what I'm trying to say, and that's the kind of things I write about in Crypto Gold Central. That the bigger that its market cap gets, and the more stable the network gets, and the more uses, especially now that we just got the SegWit protocol upgrade, which is going to enable a much faster network with much more bells and whistles, much more efficient, much more use cases. There's going to be more and more people who own it, and then more and more people who start to use it for different things.
You just mentioned a term. Could you say that term one more time, the segue use?
SegWit, Segregated Witness. It is the biggest protocol upgrade ever for Bitcoin. If you've heard the term, the scaling debate, it was a vicious debate between different communities within the Bitcoin space about whether the 1 megabyte block size that Satoshi Nakamoto had in his white paper could be maintained, meaning could you scale, could the whole world use it just with this small block size, or did you have to expand the block size, which would require what's called a hard fork, where you have to split the chain into two, and so it was very contentious because most of the people, the core development team, wanted to have this much safer scaling solution, which has a protocol called Segregated Witness, which enables you to maintain the 1 megabyte block size and not have a hard fork, and then just put layered technologies on top of it rather than just split the chain and have bigger blocks. And it was really the biggest source of stress for the system and fear for the last 2 years. But finally, this is a perfect example. I talk about how only the consensus can change things. Some of these very, very big, powerful players in the community thought that they could split the network in two, but the consensus of the world fought them and won. And so this protocol went into effect at the end of August, and as a result, 2018, you're going to see an absolutely dramatic unleashing of capital investment in the space, because now you can do so many things to expand the usage of the Bitcoin network.
That is incredibly exciting.
Oh, it's you have no idea. I mean, this was like the Revolutionary War. Or the Civil War, let's call it the Civil War. And the Civil War in the States took 4 years and had lots of casualties. And this had a lot of certainly mental casualties and a lot of stress on the system, and it slowed it down, meaning the progress of the system. And anyone who's in it knows that there was a lot of fear that it would break the system apart. But ultimately, because as I said, Bitcoin is anti-fragile, all this chaos caused was it to get stronger. And as a result, the system is much higher. Obviously, the price doubled. That's what, the price was half of it is now back in August when it went through, because everyone knows now that the system is much stronger. It's not going to be broken in two, and now it's going to be scaling at a much faster rate.
Andy, moving on to the subject of the other 900 cryptocurrencies, let's talk about them for a moment. Why are entrepreneurs creating so many of them? What is the incentive for this?
It's money. I mean, right now, look, there's going to be use cases, but it's really no different than the dot-com boom. You know, the sector got hot, so everyone was creating a company that had .com at the end of it and trying to go public, and now you've had this crazy ICO form of financing where people don't even need to raise money through Wall Street. I mean, they just kind of go out and put a white paper on the internet and say, here's our address, send us Bitcoin or Ethereum, and here's your token, and you can trade it, and I promise this is what we're going to do. I mean, it's really crazy, and that's why you've had all these bans. China just banned ICOs. The U.S. SEC is probably going to do it similarly. I think ICOs are the financing method of the future. I think we're going to, just like the banks are going to be disintermediated by Bitcoin, the investment banks are going to be disintermediated by the ICO process, meaning decentralized financing. But right now, it's in this Wild West stage. There's really no rules. People have just been buying it just because, like the early stages or the late stages of the internet bubble, just because it's going up. And so a lot of people have already been hurt and will continue to be hurt. But I think in time, it will evolve.
Andy, a few moments ago you mentioned Litecoin, and that seems to be a coin that you also like. Could you elaborate on that just a little bit?
Right. Look, people are into Bitcoin for many different reasons, but the primary use case is as a store of value, as the future money. Or even if you don't believe it's the future money of the world, you believe it's the future gold, the digital gold, where it's going to store your value and go up in value, especially when fiat currencies are destroyed. So that's why I got into it. But once you're into it, you realize, wow, there's so many other, as we're talking about, all these other cryptocurrencies out there with all kinds of different use cases. I think most of them, including Ethereum, the number two, is more akin to a tech stock than a cryptocurrency, because just about all of them are centralized. Someone created, there is an office and a CEO, and if the government was mad enough at them, they can raid the office and the CEO and wreak havoc on it, as opposed to Bitcoin, which wasn't created by an entity, and there is no entity to go after, and it's a decentralized network, and that's what gives it its monetary property, that it's anti-fragile. Governments can't stop it. The only other cryptocurrency that has this property that I see, and it aims to do that, is Litecoin. In fact, Litecoin was, a hard fork from Bitcoin back in 2011, back when no one cared about that kind of stuff. No one was worried. The founder, Charlie Lee, just said, I think there's some aspects of Bitcoin I would like to do a little better. I don't intend to replace it. In fact, he himself says, I want it to be silver to Bitcoin's gold. And in fact, the gold to silver ratio is just about the same right now as the Bitcoin to Litecoin ratio, whether it's by coincidence or not. But the cap on Litecoin is exactly 4 times that of Bitcoin. It's 84 million, and it'll take about the same time to get there. So I own it because I see it as the only other crypto that has a long track record of doing this. It also just got SegWit, and it is a decentralized group which has a development team that is advancing it in the same aggressive and conservative manner at the same time as Bitcoin is. And I have a lot of respect for it. So yeah, I hold it as silver to my Bitcoin gold, but Bitcoin is the king. In fact, Bitcoin is far more the king of the crypto sector than even gold is in the precious metal sector.
How can people become involved with cryptocurrencies? As you know, the real potential is with the endless possibilities surrounding blockchain. What do you suggest investors to do?
That's the easy thing. It's what I call the ultimate litmus, the monetary litmus test. I've said all those years when people said, well, how do I know what makes gold so valuable? I say, hold in one hand a quarter, which feels like a feather, and hold in the other hand a gold or silver coin, and you can tell how it's so heavy and lustrous. And if you do a little research and to realize how costly and difficult it was to get it out of the ground, and you realize that it's a big difference. The same with cryptocurrency. Try to do a bank wire, and then at the same time, get yourself a little crypto. It's very easy. Go to Coinbase, get an account, buy a tiny bit, buy yourself an offline hardware wallet like a Trezor, send it there, send it back, maybe buy something small with it, and you realize, oh my God, this costs nothing to do. It's super easy. There's no one involved. I don't need permission from governments or banks. And when you do that, then you realize why it's so powerful and why it's changing the world.
Now, Andy, can you name a few of the key investors who have had success in traditional investments that are now also allocating funds into cryptocurrencies?
No, but honestly, I really don't care what they have to think. I don't really have any interest in any famous investors, because if you look at the track record of any famous investor, they're famous sometimes. I mean, you could look at how I did, for instance, in the mining stocks. You could look at, if you looked at how I did in the aftermath of the dot-com bubble, right? I was short going to the dot-com bubble. No one believed me. And then I had all the mining stocks. So maybe from the years, 99 through 2006, I probably outperformed Warren Buffett. And then the mining stocks started to go down, mostly because of government manipulation, but it doesn't matter why. And I probably underperformed a monkey throwing darts for several years. and then I got heavy into Bitcoin, and I'm beating Warren Buffett again. But it's all about marketing. You got to get at the right time and get the right spin. And then someone says you're a world famous investor, but there's no one who can beat the market consistently. And I found that right now, I think the best way to beat the market, if you're just thinking from an investment standpoint, is to buy and hold Bitcoin. And so I don't really, and I don't really have respect for anything in the mainstream, generally speaking. There's obviously I'm aware of everything, but I'm more interested in the people who are out of the box thinkers, like the people who have left the mainstream to go in to become big in Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is changing the world, and by the way, it's destroying the performance of the entire mainstream.
Andy, the financial world is changing so fast. Do you have any words of advice that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Only that, it's the time to think out of the box. I mean, to me, Bitcoin is not out of the box now, but it certainly was, especially as a precious metal guy who my world was telling I shouldn't be looking at. But again, the world is changing so fast with technology. There's so many things that are being outdated right in front of our eyes. I mean, cable television, telephones, shopping malls, all kinds of stuff, and money too. I mean, you have to look around and see how deleterious the impact of fiat currency has been on your life. I mean, the cost of living has soared, and people don't have savings right now, and governments are more draconian than ever, and wealth inequality. And this is the kind of time where you stop listening to the mainstream and listen to that inner voice that's telling you something's wrong, and that, hey, maybe I should look into something like Bitcoin. And that's what CryptoGoldCentral.com is for. That's why I'm here.
Andy, this has been an amazing interview, and I'm so thrilled that you took the time to be on our show. Now, how can our listeners follow you both on social media, contact you, and please recap your amazing website so that everyone can stay up to date with all of your information?
Right. Again, like my Twitter handle, I can't believe that Twitter is just such an amazing tool for this sector. That's where all the smart people are. And so I'm in there all the time, meeting new people and talking. I'm Andy_Hoffman_CG. And my website, again, CryptoGoldCentral.com. It's probably 90% Bitcoin and 10% gold, but I'm always talking about the things that relate the two of them as well. And I've been around 3 weeks. It's been a great success. There's so much content there. It's just $225 for an entire year. I mean, I've already put up like 180 articles already, but there's also a free 7-day trial, so you can check it out. And you can always email me at ahoffman@cryptogoldcentral.com.
Andy, thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Michelle.
Andy Hoffman, the creator and the brilliant mind behind CryptoGoldCentral.com. For Cryptocurrencies, the Future of Digital Money show, I'm Michelle Holliday at PortfolioWealthGlobal.com. Thank you for joining us today for this episode of Cryptocurrencies, the Future of Digital Money show. There are many things happening in the world of cryptocurrencies, and it is important to stay on top of updates and opportunities. Tom Beck, the founder of Portfolio Wealth Global, is currently researching many top-notch ventures, which are still private but are set to IPO soon. Through our Global Wealth free newsletter, which is released every 3 days to our subscribers, he shares his thoughts on the big picture of the economy and specific opportunities to grow your wealth. The key is intelligent asset allocation and knowing your limits and your weaknesses. On our website, portfoliowealthglobal.com, you will find a wide array of downloadable reports that will grant you access to fresh viewpoints on economics, the natural resources sector, the cannabis legalization process, and cryptocurrencies blockchain. While you're visiting our website, be sure to subscribe to our free newsletter. Thanks for tuning in today, and keep investing in yourself first. For Cryptocurrencies, the Future of Digital Money show, I'm Michelle Holliday at PortfolioWealthGlobal.com.